Following the Army of the Cumberland's retreat into Chattanooga, Bragg slowly followed up this victory, but would eventually besiege his enemy around Chickamauga. The Army of Tennessee would hold the high ground near Missionary Ridge and Lookout Mountain, and both sides were fortified. Throughout October and into November, both sides skirmished and stared at one another across the picket lines. With Generals Sherman, Hooker, and Burnside dispatched to assist the Union effort in Chattanooga, various fighting took place along the line. But after the beginning of November, as Federal movements would begin to increase, General Bragg sent off Longstreet's divisions to drive Burnside from Knoxville, and had also sent off his cavalry commands. Longstreet's loss was a key loss, and if the Federals attacked, those men would be sorely missed. Grant would see to it that he would not wait all that long and prepared to hit Bragg's men. One soldier on that hill, Lieutenant Joseph Calloway, discussed his sentiments on this situation in a letter home to his wife. He wrote,
"My dear darling wife, I have not received any letter from you since the last time I wrote you, and I merely write you to merely kill time, which is the greatest burden I have. I am almost dead to see you and be with you. My patience is worn entirely out by this war. I am perfectly miserable, but God knows if I could see any prospect for peace, even a year hence, I could manage to bear it. The sun is up just above the top of Missionary Ridge, shedding golden light all over the valley, which is variegated with 10,000 autumn tents, and the Yankees' tents are so thick that their camps look like a vast cotton field in the distance."
By the third week in November, Grant put his war machines in motion after a comprehensive planning system that involved Sherman making a flanking movement to the north. Things moved quickly. On November 23rd, Federal soldiers under General Thomas Wood advanced on Confederate positions at Orchard Knob, and then on November 24th, captured Lookout Mountain. It seemed as if the moment was right to test Bragg. On November 25th, both Sherman and Hooker met obstinate resistance and gained little ground. By the afternoon, Grant wanted to push up the middle, and that fell upon the Army of the Cumberland. As if on impulse, Thomas's men rolled onward like a wave, seemingly with a desire to lock with the Army of Tennessee. Men scrambled up the hillsides in broken order, following flags and shooting as they went. The volleys of Confederates followed by the rebel yell was heard distinctly, and then followed by the deeper roar of the Yankee huzzah. Thomas's men overran the advance pits, and soon there was a confused mass of firing and hand-to-hand fights, with some prisoners being sent down the slopes. Federal flags were seen crowning the eminence, including one 19-year-old Arthur MacArthur of the 24th Wisconsin Infantry, who clambered up the slope, making himself conspicuous to the enemy, yelling, "On Wisconsin!" For this, he would be promoted, awarded the Medal of Honor, and significantly inspire his son to pursue a military career of his own fame. The troops of the Army of the Cumberland splintered the lines of the Army of Tennessee. Bragg could not hold his lines and ordered a retreat. For the major armies in the East and West, the year of 1863 ended in a similar way, with the Federals on the hunt for a chance to crush a wounded and weakened Confederate army. The Army of the Potomac under General George Meade made its camps between Brandy Station and Warrenton, Virginia, and was in fine spirits. As for the Army of Northern Virginia, they were weakened, but still dangerous. There was an overall symptom of depression that oozed from the units in Lee's command, and religious revivals popped up from camp to camp, where men would look to God for assistance and guidance in the hardships of continuing to be motivated in fighting. Lee himself felt like he could hold the Federals off in every turn, but wanted more opportunities for the offensive. Grant was promoted to commanding officer of all Federal armies and chose to keep his headquarters in Virginia, where he would see to the plans for 3 armies operating there come the end of the winter. Sherman was promoted to command all those forces that had been consolidated at Chattanooga and participated with the Army at Missionary Ridge. he would plan for an advance towards Atlanta, in conjunction with other Federal armies driving through and into the Confederacy at other locations. Grant's larger plan was to put all the troops of the Union in motion at once, 500,000 men in the field, with a mission to wear the Confederate armies down. In the West, Bragg was replaced and General Joe Johnston was put in command, and he would be the one that would be assigned to confront the aggressive Sherman as he began to make movements southward once the roads dried out and allowed for an army to move. The Army of the Potomac would retain Meade, but Grant had a new and more specific mission for the Army, and that was to hound, engage, and fight Lee to the death. To assist this operation in Virginia, 2 other armies were put into the fight simultaneously to Meade's operation along the Rapidan. Franz Sigel would command a small army in the Shenandoah Valley and was ordered to destroy any force there, to place upon Lee's rear, if possible, and curtail supplies for Lee's army. In addition to this was a larger force under General Benjamin Butler that would be placed below Richmond and look towards an assault on Richmond, as well as perform the vital task of disrupting the communications between North Carolina and Virginia. To many in Lee's army, the religious revivals, the warmth of spring, and the return of so many wounded men may have sprung them into some semblance of order, but only the fight would tell the truth of that. Colonel E.P. Alexander and his artillery battalion would be in the heart of this new fight. Alexander wrote of this attitude about Grant and the 1864 campaign.
We all knew of the tremendous preparations of the enemy and enormous odds we would have to face under their new general who had beaten all of our people in the West. We knew that rivers of blood must be poured out in this struggle, but we were only anxious for it to begin. We wanted to see Grant introduced to the Army of Northern Virginia and to let him have a smell of our powder, for we knew that we simply could not be driven off a battlefield and that whatever force Grant brought, with luck, we would have to accommodate itself to that fact.
General Lee was curious about what action Grant would take into this 1864 campaign, and from atop a lookout station at Clark's Mountain, he was surveying the options. If Grant moved southward from his camps, he would expose his rear to harassment by Stuart, Mosby, and various infantry movements, not to mention uncovering routes into Washington. Lee correctly judged that Grant would have the Army of the Potomac push through the wilderness near the old Chancellorsville battlefield, and when through, attempt to secure some open land and force Lee into a pitched battle where numbers and artillery could make a difference. Lee would want to hit Grant amongst the trees in the wilderness, where his lesser numbers and infantry's reputation for close-in action would come into play. The Army of Northern Virginia was in an interesting situation that first week in May 1864, and the armies always knew when a campaign was going to begin. General Robert McAllister of New Jersey wrote a brief note to his wife Ellen and their children.
It is now quite late, and we are all ready to move tonight at midnight. In 4 hours we will be on the move, and no doubt engage the enemy soon. I think it is a general move. You will hear of battles perhaps before this reaches you. God grant that we may be successful. I hope and pray that God will give me mind and judgment to manage the brigade and enable me to do my whole duty to my country.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to help us produce more compelling historical content like this, please like, comment below, and share this video with fellow history buffs. And of course, be sure to subscribe to help keep history happening.